guys, what is up? It's the University Rebel here, comedian, your host as usual, and I'm here with the one and only Caitlin. This young lady right here, she has an alternative success story that led her opening to her own consulting business where she consults with a multitude of clients around the topic of travel. Am I correct?
Travel and nonprofit.
Travel and nonprofit, that is her goal. So we're going to talk a little bit about how she got started into that and why her story is so special. All right. So we're going to talk a little, I want to ask you right here, what was high school like a little bit for you, especially when you were in your junior, senior year, okay? You had to fill out those college applications. What was that process like for you?
That was a crazy process. So what people will probably be shocked to hear, the people that work with me now, will probably not believe that I was nominated as having the worst case of senioritis in high school.
Really?
Really. Because I work all the time now. And yeah, I just felt like whether it wasn't that I had just found what I wanted to do in high school or I wasn't super inspired, I just wasn't really that keen on it. And I knew that I wanted to go to school, but I didn't know what for, so I applied to a couple different universities and got in everywhere that I applied to, but just wasn't feeling it, whatever that it is. I just wasn't feeling it. So yeah, I decided not to go immediately, and I took a gap year, and that was a weird experience too. People were not really well receptive to my gap year.
So was it the people that, like your family, they weren't well receptive to it? Like, you know, your general peers?
Yeah, my family was really supportive. So coming from, you know, my family's from South Africa, that's taking a gap year is so much more normal. As soon as you get out of America, everyone takes gap years, and it's part of an education experience that people have. But for some reason in America, it's just not like that. People think you take a gap year if you couldn't get into school or you need time to whatever it is. And yeah, whether it was peers or teachers or just, you know, random people that you meet and say, oh, you graduated, what are you doing? I would say I'm taking a gap year, and they'd be like, oh, shame, don't worry, you'll get into school next year, and stuff like that. So it was pretty weird.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that must be, it's like the social pressure, because you're not conforming to what society wants you to do within your success path, whatever it might be. You know, you're going to get heat for that, especially coming out of high school.
For sure.
Explain a little bit about to the audience, like, what was the gap year like for you? What was that experience? You're like, okay, I'm doing things different. Yeah. It's not like everybody else. I'm kind of in my own world. Like, what is that?
My gap year was for sure the best learning experience I've ever had. I don't think necessarily getting a degree or getting a university education has to be for everyone. A gap year is also definitely not for everyone. It was for me. I think if you can take that time, if you can have a year and conceptualize what you want to do with it, even if you don't know exactly what your end game is, as long as you can sit down and say, how do I make this year productive? How do I do things that will expand my horizons? How do I do things that will put me in touch with the right kind of people? And have it be that kind of process. So I worked really, really hard during my gap year. I worked a ton of different jobs. I bartended so that I could, you know, pay to travel. I went back to South Africa to see my family. I went and did some courses in the UK, and I just did a ton of traveling. And that actually was the spark that allowed me, my travels and my gap year was what actually landed me a job with an incredible company in the travel industry, which was my first real big kid job.
Right.
Yeah.
Gosh. So what was your experience with the travel company a little bit? How did that work?
So that was very random. I think if there's one thing that I've learned from my weird roots, it's that you just have to try. And failing is not failing at all. Every time you fail, it's a learning experience, and you've just got to put yourself out there. So I came back from this big Africa trip. I had just driven all the way across southern Africa for a month camping and all sorts of stuff. It was an amazing trip. And I came back and thought, you know, I'm a young professional, still haven't got a degree, so it's hard getting a job without a degree as well, as we all know. So I sat down in front of Google and Googled like, travel companies near me. and got this list and just wrote down every company that I could find that I wanted to work for. And if I could find an email contact, I would just send them an email. And I found this one called African Portfolio, and they're an amazing small company. They're still going, one of the first sort of African niche specialist companies in the States, with an amazing reputation. And I emailed the owner and said, hey, I'm young, I have zero experience whatsoever, but I really want to work in this sector. Can I just come in and have lunch with you? And she said yes. And while I was there, I was like, well, also I'm kind of on job hunting, and if you ever need anyone, please let me know.
Right.
And she emailed me afterwards and said, you know what, it's actually really difficult finding people who have had the on-the-ground experience that you've had. Even though you don't have experience in the industry, you've experienced things that all of the other applicants that we get haven't.
Right. So you had that value proposition. You were like,
yeah,
you weren't in that classroom taking the notes and doing the thing. Like, you were able to go out from that gap year, and that brought more value to your, employment opportunities than all the other people trying to apply straight out of college.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was the on the ground, in the fields kind of experience that really sold her. She said she gets tons of resumes, every day, every week, whatever it is, and she just can't hire anyone because they haven't been there and experienced it and felt it, and it's not the same as when you're in a classroom. You just don't get that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's how I got that job, and that's changed your whole
life.
Yeah.
So how were you able to build a consultant business from that? Because you say you got hired as an employee, you traveled and all that.
Yeah.
But how did you get, how did you hop into the entrepreneur world, build a consulting business, and still have it up and running when now you're working with a multitude of companies?
Yeah, so a process, a long and difficult process. I think it's probably my best quality and my worst quality is that I am never satisfied, and I get bored really, really, really easily. So I was in this amazing small company with incredible women that had built this great business. So even in that perspective, the entrepreneurial vibe was kind of a part of that company, and was definitely a situation that made me realize, that you can, that it's possible. One person can go and build a really strong business. But yeah, I got bored. It was an amazing company, but I got bored and I left. And I did what I did in my gap year again. I went and traveled and wanted to do a swap into the nonprofit world, and found an amazing nonprofit that I still is one of my clients, but is really one of the organizations that I work with a lot and will always work with, I think. In South Africa, traveled with them, started as an intern, went through their internship program, went and worked with them in South Africa, fell in love with the organization and the people and everything, and got back from that and realized that the nonprofit salary wasn't quite paying the bills, and I had to at some stage. But I didn't want to leave it. I wanted to have the freedom where I could go back to South Africa, spend time with that nonprofit, grow that into something more, which it has now. I mean, I started as an intern. We always have a lot of interns. Now I manage the intern team. Wow. I manage all of our marketing and communications and do some partnerships and stuff like that. So I came back and I had this very scary kind of 2 months in limbo of thinking I can either just dive back into an office job and do the 9 to 5 and kind of squish in the nonprofit stuff, or the stuff that really makes me happy. I can find a way to fit that in around the sides, or I can take a risk and try to make that how my life is and how I make money and how I operate on a day-to-day basis. And I was just really lucky at that time to meet a few very key people in my career, whether it was friends and other young entrepreneurs and mentors that really helped me make that decision to try to go the consulting route and keep an open kind of virtual workspace where I could travel and make my own hours and all of that. And so I did. I started a business called Socially, built a website, all of that kind of stuff that you do on the back end. And then just went on this almighty grind to try to find clients. And yeah, it was not easy. And it was a few months. I started in August, and I gave myself to January to have it work. And it was 2 weeks into January that I got the client that I sealed the deal.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then it was a bit of a, when it rains, it pours. So now I have the very good problem of absolutely drowning in clients a little bit. But yeah, it was pretty scary. And a lot of uncertainty and a lot of looking at my bank account thinking,
like, is the next paycheck coming in on time?
Ever?
Yeah, that's a typical entrepreneur struggle, especially when you're starting out. But it's good to hear that you actually built that up. A lot of people do struggle with that.
Yeah.
A lot of people do.
It's a hump, I think, that you've got to get over whenever you're building something. You've got to go through the building process. It's got to get to that point where it coalesces, and then, it's got to become believable. Nothing is believable, from a client perspective, right at the start.
Right. Now, just, wrapping up, your whole story, you also went back to college, am I correct? You went back and you did get your degree. She did get her degree, she went back. What was it like, just for a quick couple seconds, what was it like going back, getting your degree after you've experienced life? Did you have a better head on your shoulders, well-rounded?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Were you able to apply yourself a little bit more better, come out faster?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So, yeah, correct. So after my gap year, I actually went to university in Rome. I lived in Rome, Italy for 6 months with the school, studying entrepreneurial business, and just found that wasn't my place. So came back and ended up studying through the University of South Africa, which is a distance study program, so studying online while I was working. So
cool.
Doing a degree simultaneously, kind of grinding that out in the background.
All right, so two hustles at the same time?
2 hustles at the same time. And swapped over into environmental management, and really found that everything just fit. Being in high school, being nominated as worst case of senioritis could not be more different now, where, I love learning and I love school, and even though I think, I took an alternative route, I think it worked really well for my style of learning. I'm not just a theoretical learner, I have to have something to hang theoretical stuff on for it to gain meaning for me. Right,
so you have to be able to apply what you're learning directly then and there to be like, okay, this is something that obviously makes sense, connect the dots.
Yeah, it has to have context for me, and I was lucky where my degree in environmental management, all of my clients sit within this sort of social enterprisey sustainable development sphere. And that has then been really related to the studies that I went back to pursue, and everything just fits. It's like a puzzle piece, even though there's a million different moving pieces. It kind of comes together, and then the learning aspect and the university aspect gets to be something that is also a passion project, because I just love learning about it, and it helps me in the work that I love doing. So why not,
Right.